Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wine Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us this week as we will be discussing the To All the Boys film trilogy based on a YA series by Jenny Han, which follows the high school romance of Lara Jean and Peter Kaczynski, played adorably in all three movies by Lana Condor and Noah Centineo. Tammy, did you get the feels? Did it warm the cackles of your cold heart?
No, my heart's still cold, but it was cute though. It was. So I read the book series and very, very excited for the movies. It was really nice. Although the third movie, they changed so much compared to what the book was about. Yeah. So I guess we'll talk about that, but it definitely, it was a cute movie, the third one, but I think it was a little too cutesy, and they didn't include like the realistic drama that came about within the book.
I agree. I enjoyed the series for what it was. I read the book series as well, but I must admit, I knew it was good, or I knew I really liked it. Like, I loved the first one, and that was probably hands down my favorite out of all three of the movies.
Yeah.
Number 2 was probably my least favorite.
What? I would say number 2 was all saved by the breakup scene. Like, I thought I loved the breakup scene that they had. And that saved the movie because I watched that scene over and over again. It's my favorite scene from the second movie. But I will say it didn't. Neither two movies had the same momentum as the first one. I will say that.
Yeah, and it is kind of hard to follow the same momentum with in sequels sometimes. But I did something I rarely do, and I went and I read the series of books after I saw the first movie. Normally, once I watch a movie, it's hard for me to go back and read the books. But there were a lot of changes. I think the first one is probably the one that stuck the most with the book. And, besides the fact that they changed it from the setting from Virginia to Portland, Oregon, and different things like that. But number 1 is probably the one that stuck the most with the book. And then you have the changes that were done in the sequels. Number 3 was kind of cutesy, but I don't know. Maybe they did it because they could have added a little bit more drama about the heightened drama of, them the decision to go to different schools, and really what went into that decision. They played on that a little bit more in the book as well. So,
well, yeah, I think. See, I realized I forgot in the that the book was based in Virginia. Well, I knew the book was based in Virginia, but I forgot that they changed the location to Oregon in the movie. And so in the third movie, when I'm watching it, and I'm just like, wait. Aren't they in Virginia? Like, the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm just like, they're in Virginia. So he's going to Virginia State. Like, yeah. And then they were like, no, he's going to Stanford. And I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah, because, in the book, like for the third one, they were going to, in the book, they were going to UVA. Like, that was the dream school that they wanted to go to. Was UVA.
The University of Virginia. That's correct.
And then she ends up taking a trip to Duke, and or was it North Carolina?
No,
UNC?
It's Chapel Hill.
Yeah, she ends up going. Forgive me. So those were the large differences in the book, and in the movie, it's Stanford and UVA. So, which lets you know that Peter Kaczynski's not as big of a dummy as he's portrayed to be, because not anybody.
He is because he got an athlete. And that's another thing, because even in the movies, they still portray him as not being that smart. Not saying that he was dumb. I never got the feeling that he was dumb, but that he was not that smart. So even when they say that he got into Stanford, I was just like, out of all the schools that you could have chosen in California, you chose to send him to Stanford?
And I guess
I was
it's to
just
show
like,
that he's not that dumb, because Stanford is one of the schools where yeah, it's a baby Ivy, but they still weigh academics heavily, even for their scholarship, even for their athletics programs. That's why they don't excel in a lot of the major athletics programs. Well, in football, but it's hard. Like kind of like Notre Dame, they're really strict, or more strict than some of the others about their who they let in, even on scholarship, because of the prestige of the name. Anyway, that was me nerding out. Sorry.
I
Not
just
sorry.
wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan on the change, because of the change of location. I wasn't a fan of the change of colleges and university, because I felt that it was a way huge extreme to go from her wanting to go to Chapel Hill, which is about what's a 6 hour drive, 6 to 8 hour drive from UVA, to now they're going to be 3,000 miles. And you expect me to truly believe that the survival of 4 years, 3,000 miles away, one in New York and one in California, literally on the opposite sides of the country, compared to when I was reading the book, and at the end, when she talks about how, they're Peter and Lara Jean, like they're going to survive this. And I'm like, it's believable. It's believable that you can survive this, because you're only a couple hours away. But to be on opposite sides of the country, yeah, that's not believable to me. Like, I didn't see it as necessarily a happy ending, because it's less believable for them to survive 4 years, her being in New York City and him being in California, compared to if he had stayed in Virginia and she went to North Carolina. That was a more believable distance, even if like they had done it where he was in Northern California and she was in Southern California. I could have believed that, but I just, it didn't end up being a happy ending for me, as I guess for people who, are romantics at heart. I don't know. They'd be like, oh, that's just so cute. Like, yeah, they will survive. And I'm just like, no, they won't. I'd be like, no, they won't. They won't. She's in New York City. New York City. Come on now. Give me a break. You know how many Peter Kavinsky she's going to meet in New York City at NYU?
Well, it was the change in location. I'm just thinking, I agree with you. I thought that maybe, her getting into Berkeley, which, was an hour away, or maybe her going to Berkeley and figuring out she liked Berkeley, or, that would have been a great backup school, because Berkeley, again, is not a sleeper school. But even if she had applied to UCLA
and that was my thought process,
or
UCLA.
USC, she would have been in LA. It still would, I think, she would have gone and been like, oh, I've fallen in love with LA, or, then it would have been more believable than her going all the way and then maintaining a long distance relationship in New York. I did like how they incorporated Korea, the scenes, for that. They opened the movie with her and her family on their spring break trip in Korea. And my favorite character, besides Peter and Lara Jean throughout the whole series, was Kitty. Her little sister rocked, and I love seeing her grow up. Like, I love how they continue to use the same actress, and you see her going from this cute little adorable kid who Kitty was probably like the most mature out of all of them. Okay?
She was.
Kitty ran the
She was
Cubby.
a kid, yet she was very, very mature for her age.
Yeah, Kitty ran the Cubby household. Like, going back to the first one where she was like, Lara Jean, I'm 12 and I canceled plans to stay home with you. So, like
I have a life.
Yeah, like so you need to get your shit together, because I'm not going to be doing this too often, was the whole gist of what you got from the first movie. But I I love Kitty and her discovery of boys, and her dad was like, "Oh God, he's like Catherine's son Cubby's discovered boys. God help them."
Yeah.
And when she meets her cute little Korean boyfriend Day, and then they have their first big fight over Harry Potter, and I'm like,
Oh my God, I love that. Was the most adorable, because the fact of saying that Harry Potter was my generation. And to think, I love the fact that Harry Potter is beyond one generation. Like every generation is falling in love with the Harry Potter series. Sorry, I'm gonna nerd out because I love Harry Potter so much. But that was so cute when she was just like, "We're done. It's over. It's over. Never again." It's just like over Harry Potter. Really, Kitty?
you mean it's not the 16-hour time difference or the 18-hour time difference or whatever?
Or the fact of saying that if he called at his nighttime is your morning time, so when are y'all actually talking? Like,
thank you. Like you saw how hard it was for the two mature teenagers, Lara Jean and Peter, with that time difference. So you and Day, yeah, but
that's another thing they changed from the book, because in the book she connects with Peter's younger brother.
Yeah. So but I did love it. And then she was like, baseball, this is so boring. Why am I watching this? Because it was like, oh, I did like, now one of the things I did like that we really did not see too much in the book is that I like that her and Jen were kind of able to kind of move past their high school drama. You could tell that they would never be what they were, but they were able to start having a more mature relationship, I guess, if that makes sense.
I'm going to be in a minority, because that was one thing that I did not like about. I like the third book was harder to read than the first two. I will say that. And so maybe that's the reason why they changed a lot of stuff. But another thing of the movie that I didn't like that they changed was the drama of Peter actually changing his mind about going to UVA and actually going about seeing if he could apply to Chapel Hill. And the drama of Jen getting into UVA, which they changed because now they're saying that Jen is going to NYU with Lara Jean, when she had actually got into the same school as Peter. And that started a whole big drama there. So they changed that, as well as the fact of they completely leave out John Ambrose. It's like he didn't even exist in the third movie anymore. And the drama was that Jen got into UVA and John Ambrose was going to Chapel Hill with Lara Jean. And not saying it didn't really turn out to be too much of a drama, but that was interesting because I like the fact of her and John Ambrose. You could see the development of their French, of them being friends when they realized that they're both going to the same university. And John Ambrose was like nowhere to be found in the third movie. Neither was Peter's mom, who ended up getting Lara Jean to break up with Peter when she has the conversation about Peter changing his mind about going to UVA. And she tells Lara Jean, like, do you really think you're going to survive going to college if you're going to different schools in different states? And, him being mad to his mom and everything like that. Like, I thought they should have included that part of the dynamics of his mom and Lara Jean and the conversation that they have about Peter's future and how he was willing to change it for Lara Jean, not just Lara Jean changing her future for him. Because that's what it made it seem. It made it seem like she was making all these decisions for him. But in the book, you clearly see that he was willing to change his plans for her as well.
Yeah. I get the drama part. So I didn't miss the part about Jen and Peter, that whole angsty part. But I did miss John Ambrose. Like, where was he? And I guess maybe it didn't fit in. I don't know. Maybe it would have been cute to have him pop up at New York. Like, for one,
I was waiting the whole time they were in New York. I was waiting for him.
Like, where's John Ambrose this whole time or something? But so I guess that whole, I don't mind Peter being the jealous one, but the whole girl jealous over the ex-girlfriend thing, that's just a played out trope to me. So
But it was real. It was realistic. It may be a
it
played
was
out trope,
realistic.
but
It
because
was
Jen and
realistic.
him was years. That was years, and he was still connected to her to the third movie. Like they completely like let that part go. Even in the third movie, she still had a hold on him. I mean, even in the third book, Jen still had a hold on Peter because they don't talk about like her issues that she goes through and how he was like her safety net.
But
You know,
because I think they kind of summed that, and I think they summed that up in the second movie, where she finally comes clean with Laura Jean, because I think she doesn't come clean with Laura Jean about her issues and what's going on with her dad until the third book, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. Or Laura Jean doesn't find out about that until the third book,
no,
if I'm
it's the
not
second
mistaken.
one when they
It's the
played
second.
they played the tag game.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, but like I said, that in all honesty, even reading the books, that was probably one of my least favorite parts. It was like, okay, I'm over it. So I kind of like the way they resolved it. Like I said, I don't know if they'll ever be the best of friends, but I do miss John. I did miss John Ambrose in this book, and I also hate that her older sister, that Margot, really didn't have a storyline. Like we didn't get to meet the hot British Indian boyfriend Ravi. That
Yeah,
kind of sucked.
I was
Uh,
waiting for that too, or the fact of saying that her and Trina have definitely some conflict over the fact that she's always been the basically the woman of the house, and then Trina comes in and changes the whole thing. You get that one conversation between her sister, between Margot and Laura Jean, over how they feel about Trina changing up the house. That's like one conversation, but you don't talk about the true dynamics of how Margot comes back and she decides that she's going to stay in the house with her boyfriend because that's just what they do over in Europe. And I'm just like, boo boo, you ain't in Europe, and your daddy may
Thank
be
you.
cool, but he ain't that cool.
That
Like,
cool.
girl,
Like,
please.
look, that's some of that other people shit, because we
Yeah.
know that that doesn't particularly happen in our households.
But even like the fact of saying like, yeah, that's other people's shit. But even the other people was just like, no, that's not going down.
Yeah, not at all.
Like who you think this is? Who house you think this
Like
is?
what the fuck? Didn't he end up staying in a guest room or in the garage, in the apartment above the garage or something in the books? Like
Uh,
he was still at the house, but they put him somewhere else. Like
yeah.
they
I
weren't
think I
together.
remember that. Like, but he
He,
wasn't like he did not stay in her bedroom the way that she planned him
yeah,
to
I
stay. And
think
then he left early to go visit his family, and then she went with him.
yeah. So I I do wish someone would have had that real talk with them about the relationship. So I did miss the part with his mom. They could have swapped that for the part with his dad. Like I was over the whole thing with his dad.
I
Um,
I didn't think having as a person who has grown up with a similar situation, um I did not like the prettying up of the whole thing with his dad. I didn't like it even in the book, on how it was kind of like they were talking him into forgiving his dad and be like, well, you're going away, so you should meet him, because everybody kind of got on him about that. They don't show the fact of like his little brother actually had some form of a relationship with his dad when the dad came back in, and Peter was the one who was holding out until the very end before he goes away to school. But I didn't like when she was just like, oh well, if I could have another moment with my mom. And that's why I appreciate Peter saying it's not the same. Like it's definitely not the same. Like your mom didn't leave on purpose. She left without a choice. Like she didn't choose to leave you, and my dad chose to leave us, and he lived in the same town. They don't really mention the fact that he still lived in the same town. Like those two kids that was with bowling, those were his sons. That was Peter's brothers. Like,
yeah, I was like, and and I like that because we didn't really have that. Like the bowling scene wasn't in the books, but I loved where it was just like, oh, okay, so you randomly see me bowling and you think that we're going to just come over
And hang
and
out with your new
and
family?
then and then you can't even get my girlfriend's name right. It was like Peter was like big time annoyed, and I'm like, yeah, he has a right to be big mad. And I agree. Someone also who grew up with an absentee father. I'm not saying that they're all, but just the way they went about it, like you were not going to fix all those years worth of damage. Even like they had a point. He did need to forgive him, but not for his dad, not so that they could build some happy, perfect relationship, unless that's what they chose to do. He needed to forgive him to let go of all the anger and the bullshit
Yeah.
that he felt towards him.
But he
But
didn't have
it,
to meet him to do that. I think that's one thing I hate about prettying up those types of situations, is because most of the time that's not how it ends up. Most of the time you be like, okay, like I understand, like I'm gonna hear you out, but you ain't calling your dad to have no dinner. You ain't meeting him at your favorite diner. That's not how we rolling.
well, it was a small town. Well, I don't know. I guess it was Portland, so it wasn't that small. But I get it. And I think one review or one headline I read, because, I try to stay away from the reviews for the shows and movies we do, especially before we do them. But it just said that the movie was a love letter to itself. And I think it was. Like, there were some things that were a little too cute. And the drama that they did have in the movie, it seemed a bit contrived. Like, even if you chose the distance of going away to New York, the way Peter's reaction to it was, it made it seem like codependent. And I didn't like the fact that when she accidentally sent the text, she did something completely on Laura Jean, and she lied to him. Like, she would have, in the books, she would have never lied to him.
She
Like, she
wouldn't
would
have.
have,
She would have told him exactly how it went down.
yeah. And and it's just like, okay. And then you wait until you get into NYU to tell them that you didn't get into Stanford. And it was like, but if Berkeley was your backup school, then, or no, she waited till she got into Berkeley and to tell him that she didn't get into Stanford.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then he wasn't even upset that she lied. And I'm just like, dude, really?
But and okay, so like what that showed me is, and this goes back to the first movie. And so in the first movie, what you see is when they're at the party that Peter takes Laura Jean to, and they're talking, and Jen's friend, I never knew the girl name, is like asking her, oh, so what have y'all done? And she's like throwing out all these acronyms and everything like that. And Jen is just like, they haven't done anything. She's like, how would you know? She's like, because I know Peter. And that was the one thing on Peter, was a very insecure, popular jock. And you see that throughout the whole movie, even as he's a popular kid and, he's an athlete. He wasn't secure. Like, he didn't have full confidence. He wasn't confident in himself, because he questioned himself throughout the three movies. You see him constantly question himself, or question Laura Jean's feelings for him. Like, he
I think
never truly felt fully secure in
and
the feelings that she had, compared to him falling for her, and her, like, I don't know, like, I mean, he knew she loved him, but I think that at moments you start to see his insecurity. Like, he wasn't as confident as you're supposed to think he is.
well, I think it goes back to his. I'm going to play armchair shrink here. Um, it goes back to his daddy issues and his abandonment issues with his dad. And even though he was close to his mom, um, in the books, you start to see some fractures in that relationship. And I don't think besides the dinner, the first dinner, you don't even see his mom again.
No, or
Because
his
I know,
brother.
or his brother, because I know in the second movie, versus the second book, I know that she also had issue. She took issue with Laura Jean, and I think that's really what leads to the conversation in the third book, is when Laura Jean broke up with Peter in the second book, and his mom got involved in that, and I know that also caused some issues as well. So, um, yeah, but and and I learned the hard way that a lot of the changes that they do in movies from the books have to do with time. And I don't know if maybe I can't even say if some of the issues were too adult for Netflix's intended audience, because it's Netflix, but I don't know. like I said, the first one was probably my favorite one. The third one was, it was cute and it was good, but it wasn't. It still left something to be desired, I guess, is what I'm
You know what
getting
my
at.
favorite part of the series is? Like, you're supposed to love the romance between Peter and Lara Jean. And not saying that I didn't, because I loved how they both bended for each other, right? And they tried. Like, you saw the growth of their relationship. But what I really, really enjoyed was Chris and Trevor. I loved like how they slowly like developed, and then all of a sudden Chris started doing stuff that she would never ever do, or that she said she would never ever do for Trevor. And you know, their relationship was nowhere in the book whatsoever. But I just found them to be so adorable together. He got her to go to prom. And
It,
she was so like anti, like what is it when people are like against Valentine's Day and everything like that,
she
like
was
yeah, she
anti-establishment,
was
like.
so anti-establishment, but like everybody like kind of went against her to get her to do things with him because they knew she really liked him. But I just found them to be so cute on how like opposite they were, but how she bended it for Trevor and then acted like she didn't like it. Like, girl, please.
But Trevor, in his defense, he accepted her completely, wholly
Yeah.
as she was. Like, it was just like, okay, like, if I get, because you know, it's like, okay, if I get her to go to prom, I don't care what she wears.
She's
I know
going
it's
to
going to be
prom.
something. She's just going to prom, you know. And just like when because they were on a break in the third movie, like they had supposedly broken up, but they were still a couple, and he didn't pressure it. He was just like, okay, whatever. He's like, you know, you love me, like, you know, we're
And the
together,
fact is,
whatever.
you knew they were still hooking up. That's the reason why like they still had that dynamic, because even if they weren't together, they were still hooking up with each other.
I mean, you know, because she was like, all right, I might do NYU after my year on the coffee commune in Costa Rica, you know, but it was just like,
I did
okay,
think that
you
they
know,
should
not.
have, they changed so much to go for the movie, and I understand, like, I just think that the person that I thought would have been absolutely perfection at NYU was Chris. um, like
Yeah, I was
I
just gonna
thought
say
that when
that.
she went on campus and she kind of like was going around with Jen and with Lara Jean and with the upperclassmen, that she would just be like, oh, this is cool. And then you would find out like she had applied to, you know, college or whatever, and she had gotten in or something. Like, I was waiting for that moment, and they never did that. But I got a little bit of that dynamic when they were like kind of, you know, enjoying college life, that yeah, Chris is gonna end up at NYU.
Yeah, because
It's
it's
gonna be the
out
three
of,
girls together.
yeah, out of everybody, it's like that was her school,
Yes.
you know. Like NYU was the place where I saw her the most, and I was like, oh, okay. Um, but I guess they had to leave one character completely true to form,
I guess.
um, as far as what they were. But um, yeah, I like I said, I really, really, really miss John Ambrose. I hate that he definitely was not in this version or in this series,
And
in this
granted,
movie at all. Excuse
he
me.
wasn't as much in the book, because he really does come back when they're going through like the college applications and they're finding out where they apply. And she goes to, I think it's like a group meet at Chapel Hill, when she goes to visit Chapel Hill, and then she realizes that he's also there. So he's not throughout the book, but I'm with you on, I miss that added dynamic, because I thought he was a great character. Um I thought he was a
And it would,
great character.
and you know, besides the real realistic, I mean, because again, take it from me, I did long distance, and it was the same situation. College, he went to one school, and we were always going to separate colleges. That was not the problem. But the original college he was supposed to go to was going to be in state and roughly 4 hours away by car and 30 minutes by plane. He ends up going to a state, out of college all the way up in the north. You know, so it's like 4 hours versus several states
And
away,
a longer plane ride.
and a longer plane ride. And again, being in college, don't come from that Rockefeller type of money. You know, that's harder to maintain. And just the fact that you're growing and you're meeting friends and you're going out and you're doing different things. So the communication that you have in the beginning is not going to be the same as it is in the end, especially as you grow and you change and that dynamic changes. So Peter's his doubts about them being able to make it that far away, that was legit. That was legit. That was
and
real.
I think it was too
So I
cutesy.
think, yeah, so I think John Ambrose would have added another legit, like I said, I was over the Jen drama, so that didn't bother me the way they wrapped that up. But I think John Ambrose would have added that other dynamic, like that other real drama, that, hey, I know how you felt, even though y'all may be friends. It's like, okay, you give that realistic expectation that, oh shit, if it's not John Ambrose, then hey, it may be some other guy, because Laura Jean was more of a catch than she thought she was herself. You know what I'm saying? Like Peter in middle school, she was turning all the heads of the guys except for the gay dude.
Yeah.
And even for a moment before she realized he was gay and became her best friend, he was hot for
Yeah.
it. So it's just like, okay, you had John Ambrose, you had Peter, who'd always secretly been in love with you. But so it's just like, oh, okay. But I think just him, he would have added a heightened sense of drama, even if he had only been in the movie just during the New York scenes, which was enough, because like you said, that really would have served the
I
purpose
was
of him.
waiting. I was waiting the whole time there was a new. I said, John Ambrose coming. He coming. He about to, like, I really was like, when they went to that party, I was like waiting to look around, like, where John at? Where John Ambrose? Where John Ambrose? And he never showed up. And that's when I knew, like, they're really gonna do this movie and not have him here. Like, I was just like, what? And the crazy thing is, they taped the last two movies together, back to back. There was no break in between taping the second movie and taping the third movie. So you just like had him for the same, like, all right, your part's over, you can go home now. Like really? I mean, come on. So I did miss him. I miss that dynamic. I'm going to be, I guess, in the minority and say that the dynamic of the insecurity of Peter, and then hearing that the person that's always been there with him was going to end up going to the same school as him, would have added another dynamic, because just like he was insecure in a relationship, Laura Jean had always been insecure, and Jen was her insecurity like button. And it's realistic to think that the girlfriend that he had for years since middle school ends up at his school, and you've never been secure enough in your relationship to think that something wouldn't happen with them too. Because I'm thinking, like, if Jen goes to his school, they're definitely going to at least form the friendship back that the dependent friendship that they had beforehand, because that's just the dynamic that they had. But 3,000 miles, girl, go find yourself a new man in New York. You got a whole bunch of them. Go find you a J Park or something like that.
At least do. Shut up. I thought we said she was going. We're going for the yogi. Go find you a yogi.
Oh, yes. You don't think he's badass, but he gonna come out like that.
Thank you. He gonna show you that franchise yogi. Sorry, inside joke. K-pop fans know what we're talking about. But one of the cutest scenes that I saw that I loved in this particular movie, and that was one thing I did love about the series. They all had a series of cute scenes.
Yeah.
Like the first one is my favorite, and the first one was just chock full of them. And being a closeted,
what's your favorite from the first one, though? Your absolute favorite scene from the first one?
Oh gosh, my absolute favorite scene from
above all others.
I would probably say it may be two of them. I'm gonna have to go with two.
You can never pick just one, yo.
I can't.
Go ahead.
From this one, I can, but from the first one, because the first one was so cute. The first one is probably when they go to the party and he lets her hair down and he's like, he's trying to drag her into that party. That whole scene was cute. Like when they're out in the foyer and he takes her hair down and he's like, and he took the picture. He's like, you're gonna have to have a picture of me on your phone, and then she goes, you're gonna have to have one of me. He goes, girl, I got you. Like I already got it. Like
He
he
had
took
already
it on the
changed
low.
it.
Yeah, and he let her hair down. He's like, that was cute. And I also love the hot tub scene. I did. That was so cute. But from this one, what about you? What was your favorite from the first one besides getting to this one?
I will say the hot tub scene, but not the makeout part. My favorite part of the movie is when she had just put her feet in, and then he had finally like kind of explained the fact that he actually liked her, and he had went to the Korean supermarket and everything like that. And the look that he gave her right before she got into the
that was
hot
a panty
tub.
melter. Yes, like, that was a panty melter. Like,
yo, I rewatched the first movie, and I went back multiple times to watch that one part. It only lasts for about 3 seconds, but the look that he gave, I don't know if that was Noah's look or if that was Peter's look, but
that was well, I'm sorry. Yeah, they said a lot of that was
he
Noah,
did do a lot of his own like kind of swag and everything like that in the movie. But I think that scene, that part gets me every single time. Just on the fact of you really see that he wants her and he really likes her, and you see when the dynamics of his heart change. I feel like in that one look that he gives her is when his heart was hers. Like it was no longer Jen's, it was all Lara Jean's. So that's my favorite. Like ultimately, my favorite part of the whole first movie.
And so from this movie, I love the say anything riff. Like when he finds out when he gets the text message, and then like 20 seconds later, movie time 20 seconds, but I'm sure in the time that took him to drive from his house to her house, and he's out there playing his Stanford theme song, and he gives her that ugly ass tree hat, and I'm like, oh, that is so Peter Kaczynski, but it was so cute. Like it was just, because they had just been watching Say Anything, and I love that. Like, but I thought that was one of my favorite scenes.
So my favorite scene from the last movie is gonna be, I guess they're gonna be like, wait, what? That had nothing really to do with the storyline. But it's not actually a scene with them two. It's not a scene with Peter and Lara Jean. My favorite scene from the movie is when they steal the pink couch from the girlfriend, the girl's ex-boyfriend's apartment, and then they end up shoving it into the sun. Like that shit really happens. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. That really that kind of stuff.
I was like, that's such a New York thing. Like that is so New York
thing, and I love the showing that kind of dynamic where anything can happen in New York. It's really true. Anything can happen if you just open your mind to letting it happen. And I love that scene because that was a bonding scene where she saw that, yo, I'm gonna be good here. Like it would be amazing to come to New York City where anything can happen. And so like that was my favorite scene is when they got the pink couch into the subway. And I was just like, oh my God, that's such a New York thing. That's so New York. Even when people move and they have to travel by the subway and they're trying to shove everything into the subway. Like that happens, y'all.
That's crazy. I would die. Now that is one thing. I know we talked about the change in locations for the colleges and stuff like that, but that is one thing I did appreciate is you really did see her in the limited time that they were there. You saw her fall in love with the city. Like you saw the things that made her fall in love with it. So it wasn't just you could kind of tell like it wasn't an easy decision for her because of but you knew that it just from the way she felt about being there that weekend, that it was going to be the best decision for her. And if she didn't go, then she would regret it. So, like I said, I'm not going to go back and forth on the drama and how that scene could have been written and how they could have heightened the drama just a little bit. And I agree. I think it is a little too cutesy to expect them to be together. I'm like, okay, y'all might make it through the first semester or first
First
trimester.
semester is it.
But once life really starts and the time
and you start
difference
to
and
meet
all
new
that,
people that are at the same school as you, who you actually like and get along with, it's going to change the dynamics.
So I'm not going to say sequel because we know Jenny Han has not written a sequel, but I would love to see how they end up like a normal people type of thing. That's what I thought of when I saw that epilogue, was like normal people. Where Lara Jean and Peter maybe 10 years from now, 7 years from now, like when they turn 25, what's happened in their lives. I would love to see that.
I'd love
that's
to
just
see it
me
if they give an honest depiction of it and not cutesy it up and say, oh no, they survived the 4 years and
oh no, definitely
like,
not. There have to be other people. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like normal people, like like she's written her first book where she's working at a publishing house, or and they just randomly run into each other in Chicago or somewhere.
And then kind of
like
go through and see how each other is doing, and catching up, and then realize that there's still something
but
there.
No, not automatically we're picking up at Lara Jean and Peter's wedding. No, definitely
or we're picking up and they're still together after. Like, no, stop it.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you want to bring John Ambrose back into the picture. Nah, dude, too late for that.
Especially seeing as how in the second movie you realize that even though like she did like him when she was younger, that dynamic has flown away. Like she did not have the feelings, because when she kissed him and all she could think about was the fact that she loved Peter. Like, I didn't want them to bring John Ambrose back to have him be like a foil where all of a sudden like she's gonna get with him or something like that, because she already showed in the second movie that those feelings had not transferred after so many years apart. But the dynamic of her having someone who was like-minded, kind of like her Lucas James, because look, I love the fact that her Lucas and Chris became BFFs throughout the whole series.
Oh yeah, she and Chris just welcomed Lucas into the BFF.
Yeah, and like so he did everything with them, and he was part of the crew. So I love that. Not saying that John Ambrose would be gay, but just her having someone who shared her interests, because that's not Jen. Even though her and Jen will be going to NYU, and friendship from middle school is very, very different. Like they grew apart, and then we're no longer friends. They could be cool, but she needed that new dynamic, and I thought John Ambrose could be that dynamic where they just go through the college experience together, but not romantically. So yeah, I think I'm good on not seeing how it ends, because I don't want them to mess up the cutesy end of it. Even though we know they don't end up together, but yeah.
I mean, if you were gonna do like an adult version, like I said, give it that normal. Well, it doesn't have to be as dark or twisted as Normal People, although that is amazing show. Shout out to Normal People. But just where they are not together in college, and maybe flashback to when they broke up, and then just bring us to where they are and what their life is like now, like how they would get back together, something, because they're in game, but still, that's what I'm talking about.
Is it wrong to say I don't think she could write something like that though? Based on the series, I like the series, but the third book was a little tough to get through.
Yeah, I think the third book was tough, and I sometimes I don't know.
We'll see. That's an idea you can throw out there, but
yeah, Jenny Han, if you're listening,
yeah,
which,
definitely. But
yeah,
I got one more thing. Sorry. So one thing that I noticed once I went back and watched all three movies back to back to back was, did you notice how much K-pop was in the movies?
Yeah, because she's Korean.
No, but like okay, now it's only been a year since I've been like a K-pop stan, and I've actually started listening to the music. So I just listened. I was just listening to the music, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, this is a really cool soundtrack," not knowing that it was K-pop. But now watching the 3 movies and actually knowing how K-pop sounds, I was just like, yo, I know this. I know this. Like, and I started to point out songs from different groups that I don't really follow, but I've heard the songs. And I was just like, Girls' Generation? ITZY? What? I said, oh yeah. And then each movie had at least one song from Blackpink. Just a crazy thing that I noticed. Sorry.
And there you go. There was our K-pop. Well, we've had several K-pop shout outs this episode, but you can't do it without it. But that would be my final thing before we rate this. I will say this. Each movie had an amazing soundtrack, and I fell in love with several artists and songs. I discovered several new loves from each of the soundtracks of each movie. So the music was amazing. So shout out to whoever curated the music for this and the soundtrack. You did a great job for all 3 movies. Okay, so how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it by movie? Do you want to do the trilogy as a whole?
Let's do trilogy as a whole. Let's do the series.
Okay, so how would you rate the trilogy as a whole?
So as a whole, first, second, and third movie, I am going to give it a solid 3.25. I love the story. I love the romance of Lara Jean and Peter. I love the secondary characters. I thought it was really, really good. Little too cutesy for me on some parts. Like they were trying to go for a certain audience, and rather than like staying a little bit more true to the book and just adding the drama. But overall, 3.25. I enjoyed the series. Like I can watch the series again and not be bored, because there's always scenes that I just absolutely love and I can watch over and over again, like the hot tub scene with that look. Never get over that look. But yeah, so that's my rating. What about you, Eddie?
I'm gonna give it a little bit more. I'm gonna go 3.5. I absolutely loved it. The first one, of course, hands down, my favorite. The second one, not so much my favorite, but it was good. It was decent. And the third one, it was cute. I'm not gonna say it was my least favorite, but it was slightly better than the second one. So I can watch it over again back to back, but I probably, I would probably sometimes I would stop at the first one and just be like, okay, I'm good with this one. I know how the rest of it ends, but there are certain scenes that I could fast forward to through each of the movies. So, plus, like I just said, it has an amazing soundtrack. The whole series has an amazing soundtrack, so you should check that out. But I think that was a great one. So how would you do the third movie, just in itself, just since that's what we
the third one, like 2.753 maybe, if I really think about it.
2.753.
Like it was cute. I'm not gonna get fully into it. It was cute, but I will say that I was one of those fans that the whole time I was watching the movie, I was remembering the book. Because they changed so much from the book, and I was waiting. I was waiting for certain things that happened in the book to happen in the movie, and they never happened. So it really brought down the ratings of the third one. It was cute, but it was too cutesy, which made it a little unbelievable. Okay. I will say, made it a little unbelievable on how cutesy it ended up being.
So you fall into it was a love letter to itself mode. Okay, I got you. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for this episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. Thank you for joining us as always. Be sure to check us out. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. Ooh, cat really got my tongue, and I don't even know have cats. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Wind Down on the popcornwinddown.com. Pop, 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 plug, plug, plug. I think we should do a popcorn sound. That's what I'm going to look into. I figured out our sound effect. So, be sure to join us next week when we will discuss Rugal. I'm so excited for that one. And until next time, I'm Eddie.
I'm Tammy. Bye.